is what we do. And that's the reason why we are here this evening. Whenever we get information or find an area or a connection to get information, we will try and do it so that we can all be informed. So this evening, I want to commend you for coming on so early. And I want to also use this opportunity to apologize because you were on very early, but we are our presenter. I'm sure all will be well. If we know it in church, whenever you try to do anything and do good, you know what is going to happen, who's going to show up. But we know God is on our side and we'll be fine. Sure, she was having some technical difficulties, but I'm sure it will be sorted out. So it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all this evening to our Church of God of Prophecy Coronavirus Vaccination Town Hall. As a church, I know you will join with me and agree with me. As a church, we believe in contributing wholeheartedly to the growth of this nation. And as a result, we think it's prudent that we become a part of the conversation. Whatever conversation is on, we really as a church want to make sure we're a part of it. Hence our reason for being here this afternoon. I really want to take this time to acknowledge our National Overseer, Bishop Dr. Winston Leith, Parish Overseers, for those who are on already, national workers, pastors, ministers, since we have pastors who are not ministers, members of this wonderful body. And of course, I want to recognize our national public relations team and friends, because we will have friends who we might invite. So I want to recognize friends. If there are any children around, because I can tell you my daughter, my 6-year-old granddaughter, Kayla, is excited and she wants to hear. So she's here. So I want to recognize the children who are around. We trust that this evening we will not be able to do the impossible, and we know we will not be able to allow everyone to ask questions, but we trust that we can support. Once a question is asked, we trust we can learn from each other's questions. So we trust that some of the concerns and questions will be addressed. Now, taking us through this evening's proceedings is Mrs. Georgia Wall Richards, a multifaceted and committed educator, I would say, who served in this church, our church, as pastor, youth director, the public relations team, and just to name a few. Mrs. Wall Richards is currently the regional officer of the JTA South Central Regional Office. And so it is my pleasure to turn over to her. I know she's going to be talking a little and she will give me a little chance just to check back to make sure our presenter is okay, Sister Georgia. I'm just going to check back with her to make sure everything is sorted out. But it's my pleasure to hand over to you, ma'am. I know you will do a good job. Blessings to you as you take us from here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leith. To our National Overseer, Bishop Dr. Winston Leith, his administrative assistants, our Director of Communication and Public Relations, and her team, Dr. Heidi Leith, to our parish overseers who might be on this platform, our pastors, our ministers, our national workers, I say good evening. The author of Proverbs 18 and verse 15 posited, an intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. It is against that background this evening, ladies and gentlemen, that the Communication and Public Relations Department of the Church of God of Prophecy in Jamaica seeks to bring information to the membership of our church. Dr. Leith said it well. We believe that as a church, we should cater to our members holistically. It was the 10th of March 2020 that Jamaica reported its first imported case of the coronavirus, life as we knew it changed as at that day. We've been living amidst much uncertainty. For many persons, this has brought on fear, and fear that many persons live with on a daily basis. For some persons, this has brought on apprehension. We hear of the protocols. As a church, we reinforce and we collaborate with government to ensure that our people are safe. On a weekly basis in all our local congregations, we ensure that the protocols are adhered to. In our own private homes, we ensure that we observe the protocols. In our places of work, as we interact in public spaces, we make every effort to maintain our safety. But still, we've been operating, many persons with doubt. And we believe that a lack of knowledge can be very destructive to a people. We believe that as we take action as a church and in our own individual spaces, that our actions need to be based upon knowledge and information. As we take decisions, we want as a people, as a church, to be able to take informed decisions. As a religious organization, an organization that cares much for its people and for its membership, we see it as our responsibility to assist with whatever is being done by government to reinforce this information. And therefore, this evening, we've called our membership together. We've called our families to include our children. And I would really ask that if it is that we are in a space where we have not yet invited our entire families and our children to be a part of this town hall, that we take the opportunity as we wait to invite them to come along. Because this activity is really geared at catering to the entire family. It is hoped that as we receive information this evening, that we will use the information wisely. We will not be selfish with the information we will garner. But for those who might operate out of churches where there are certain limitations preventing entire membership from joining us this afternoon, it is hoped that we will go back to our local churches and we will cascade the information that we will receive this evening. The Communication and Public Relations Department believes very strongly that an informed population, an informed church membership will do wonders in helping to stem the effects of this coronavirus. We know that many of our church families have been negatively impacted by this virus. We know that even if it has not come close to home, I really believe that every person on this platform tonight can register even one person known to them or their family members who would have suffered as a result of corona. Corona has ravaged individuals, ravaged families. Corona is impacting the national economy. Corona is impacting our church operation. Corona is impacting the communities within which we exist. it is reported and statistics have shown that a number of persons are now presenting with mental health situations simply because of those things that come along with the coronavirus. And so this evening, I really believe with all my heart that this activity is a timely, relevant, and necessary one. And so I'm going to encourage all of us this afternoon to give our undivided attention. We hear so much about the corona vaccine, but much of what we hear is not rooted in any empirical data. Much of what we hear can be even categorized as heresy. But as a church, we do not want to operate in the dark. We do not want to operate without knowledge. We do not want to make comments or to make presentations that are not embedded in the empirical data. And so once again, I want to applaud Dr. Leith and the team for ensuring that the information comes to the people of the Church of God of Prophecy in Jamaica. Before we go further, I am going to be inviting at this time our National Overseer to open for us in prayer, Bishop Dr. Winston Leith. Is Bishop with us? Is Bishop with us? If Bishop is not with us at this time, can I invite any one of our ministers or pastor who feels so led to just open for us in prayer? Can I invite someone to pray for us? You see, we've gone to 245 participants, and it's not easy to see all of the persons who are on the platform. So I'm going to invite one of our ministers to be praying for us at this time. Minister Floret, can you pray the opening prayer for us, please? Minister Floret.
I was about to, but since.
Good night, everyone. Let us pray. Oh God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that we can be gathered here as a church, as a group, as citizens of this country, God, who are sharing the same issues. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your mercies, God. We thank you that you have preserved us so far. You have led us. You have helped us. You have healed us, God. You have kept us. And tonight, God, we pray that as we come together, we will learn more about this issue. We will be informed. We will make informed decisions, God. And we will look to you to take us through this pandemic. I pray for those who are hurting. I pray for healing. I pray for help, God, where help is needed. Even now, God, with our presenter, we pray that you will work things out. We pray, God, whatever issues are happening will be solved in the name of Jesus. God, we look to you tonight for complete direction and bless our minds and strengthen us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so very much, Minister. This evening, ladies and gentlemen, we have as our presenter, Dr. Melody Ennis. She is Director of Family Health Services in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. It is our firm belief that over the past year, Dr. Ennis would have lived the realities of the impact of the COVID virus. Dr. Ennis would have experienced much relative to COVID, and she would have been armed with much information relative to the coronavirus vaccine. This is an area that we're currently struggling with, And so we are happy that Dr. Ennis is here and that she is here to enlighten our darkness. The Church of God of Prophecy Jamaica welcomes you, Dr. Ennis, and we ask you at this time to speak to us as it relates to the COVID virus vaccine. Dr. Ennis.
Good evening, everyone. It is indeed my pleasure to be here with you this evening. Right, and we're really talking vaccines. We need to talk vaccines. It's on everybody's tongue for the last many months. So we're just gonna have a discussion. I would like for you to note your questions so that at the end, because at the end, it's the more important discussion that will make this meeting fruitful. I am going to this time share my screen and let's get on with it. Is everyone able to see?
Not okay.
Okay, is everyone?
As Flow has invested over 40 million to build up the network by you.
We have co-created more than enough communities with much more to come.
So you can stay connected to our today or call 1-800-824-2994 to find out frequent outbreaks of virus.
Central database or database.
Okay, is the feedback any better? Okay, I don't think I'm hearing it again. Okay, here we go. I think we're on slideshow. So we're talking vaccines this evening, and we want to get as many of the facts as possible. And without further ado, let's begin. So we all know why we are here. And that is simply because the world is certainly in anguish over the last year. We have had over 3 million deaths, and we have had over 144 million persons infected. Now, if we look at the deaths, over 3 million, and we really put that in context, that is really the population of Jamaica. So had it been just Jamaica COVID infected, we would no longer be, the entire population would have been wiped out. So persons are very fearful, they're very anxious, and over the time, medicine have not really been too successful. We have tried everything. We have hit the COVID-19 patient with antiretrovirals, we have hit them with antibiotics, we have hit them with steroids, and at the end of the day, we know the death toll and we also know the infection rate toll. So we are, because of what has happened over the last year, we are at vaccines. Can vaccines help? What are they? how can they take us out of this abyss? Because that's really where the world is at this point. So we are now going to look at vaccines. So these are really substances, are indeed medicines that are given to us as injection drops or even as a nasal spray. Now here in country, we are familiar with the injection and the drops. You know, we got measles and we got tetanus and we got polio as a drop, but we're not too familiar with the nasal spray, which is actually what is used in some influenza vaccines, as well as, if we're following the news out of Cuba, the AstraZeneca, the COVID-19 vaccine that they're actually making is a nasal spray. So we have these substances that really stimulate our bodies to produce what we call antibodies. And these antibodies are actually germ fighting tools that really allow the body to have a stronger and quicker immune response to invading organisms. Now, what exactly is this immune response? Well, this is our body's ability to resist, to fight off, withstand, to counteract, to keep at bay any infection or toxin that may try to harm our body. And we actually use cells for this. Cells, once they have been exposed, once these cells have been exposed, they form a memory so that whenever the organism comes into our bodies, then they can attack and protect. Now, the simplest way I feel to understand how our immune system works is if we actually look at the army. And the Jamaica Defense Force, as we know, has many categories of soldiers, but their overarching role is to protect this place called home. And in order to be well prepared, our soldiers gather intelligence so they understand the strategies and tactics of any opponent. And they go to camp and they look at this and they build their arms so that if we are attacked, they can certainly be victorious. Now, the body does the same thing. We have our little soldiers, the white cells, and they too need to gather intelligence. And they gather this intelligence from vaccines because vaccines give the body a sneak preview of what the germ looks like. So when you get the vaccine, it primes the body, and our soldiers can go and make the antibodies or the germ fighting tools. They are stored in their memory so that when the real thing hits us, we have them ready to defend the body. Now, we have been using vaccines for some 200 plus years in the world. Vaccines continue to save 2 to 3 million lives every single year. And we have several types of vaccines that we are accustomed to. We have the live attenuated version, which is the weakened virus or bacteria that is purified and made into a vaccine. Examples being the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, yellow fever, and chickenpox. We also have vaccines that utilize the killed virus. So the virus is killed, purified, and we take that as a drops with polio, and we take it also as the influenza shot on an annual basis. And of course, there is the tetanus. The tetanus shot that we get with every rusty nail joke is actually a vaccine. And of course, you know, we take that quite frequently. Actually, it can last for 10 years. So once we have received our childhood shots of tetanus, it then lasts for 10 years before we'll need to get one. But we all know the anxiety about lockjaw that we all experience if the knife in the kitchen cut us or something in the garden, not to mention, of course, the nail and the dog bite. We also have some other types of vaccine. Now, these vaccines actually use a small portion of the virus or bacteria. And again, it's purified. and they call it subunit or recombinant or conjugate vaccines. And examples of these would include our hepatitis B vaccine and our, excuse me, human papillomavirus vaccine. The hepatitis B vaccine is given in 3, and if anybody on the platform is in the medical fraternity, any arm of medicine, once you are in college or university, then hepatitis B vaccine is pretty much mandatory, because they know of the high infectivity of hepatitis in our profession. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have been using vaccines for so long. We know the importance of same. So the question is really, what is the challenge with the COVID-19 vaccine at this time? What exactly is the challenge that we're having? So I want to share with you a little video on vaccine development, which will help us to understand why we are possibly where we are. So take a listen.
Well, first you have to identify how do you create a vaccine to fight a new disease, and why does it take so long? Well, first you have to identify the virus or bacterium that causes the disease. In some cases, the pathogen itself can then be weakened or deactivated and used to make a vaccine. But this isn't always possible. In these cases, the next step is to identify the pathogen's antigens, unique protein or glycoprotein markers which can form the basis of a new vaccine. For some pathogens, these antigens always stay the same. Other pathogens, like the virus that causes flu, can change or mutate their antigens, and so these must be reanalyzed every year. Once you have identified the pathogen or antigens, you need to decide how you are going to use them to build a vaccine. This is called the vaccine platform. There are a lot of options here, like subunit vaccines that only use part of the pathogen. There are also newer or more experimental technologies, like viral vector or nucleic acid-based vaccines. But we'll get to these a bit later. You also need to decide how the vaccine will be administered. By injection into the skin or muscle, orally like the polio vaccine, or through the nose like some flu vaccines. Each of these options could affect the response the vaccine induces. For now, let's say you've decided on the platform and designed the vaccine. Next, it needs to be tested, first in cell cultures and then in animal models. This might include challenge studies, where animals that have been given the vaccine are deliberately exposed to the target disease to see if the vaccine protects them. Further down the line, and if the disease isn't too serious or effective treatments are available, humans might take part in challenge studies too. Once the vaccine candidate is proven safe in animals, you need to prove you can manufacture it to a high enough standard for people and at scale. This is called GMP certification. If the vaccine passes all of these stages, it's time to begin human trials. Normally, these come in 3 phases, and they all have to be passed. First, the vaccine is given to a small group of healthy people to test for adverse reactions. This is called the safety trial. Second, you give the vaccine to hundreds of people to work out what dose is needed to trigger a big enough immune response. Finally, you can trial the vaccine in thousands of people to see how effective it is. This step is often the slowest, and participants are sometimes recruited around the world. Researchers have to wait for participants to come into contact with the pathogen naturally. By tracking how many become infected, they can work out how effective the vaccine is at protecting the group. It can take decades to gather enough data to be sure. But if you do, the vaccine can finally be licensed. There are still problems to overcome, however. Mass producing a vaccine to a high standard can be a difficult job. And once you've cracked production, you still have to deliver the vaccine to where it's needed. And then there's phase 4 monitoring, keeping track of rare adverse reactions that the vaccine might cause, even though it's passed the previous trials. This trial process is very safe, but that comes at a cost. It is also very slow. In an emergency, there are ways to speed things up, like reducing the time spent waiting for paperwork to be completed, or running different trial phases at the same time. But steps are never missed out. By working more efficiently, a protective vaccine could be produced in as little as 12 to 18 months, and advances in biotechnology could speed up production pipelines as well. And there are more ways we could speed up production. Let's come back to some of those newer vaccine platforms. Nucleic acid vaccines don't use pathogens or antigens directly. Instead, they deliver the genetic templates for the antigens. These DNA or RNA templates can be delivered directly or in lipid nanoparticles that help them to enter cells and improve their stability after injection. These nanoscale fat droplets encapsulate the RNA or DNA, protecting it as it enters the body. Some lipid nanoparticles can also act as adjuvants, molecular triggers to kickstart the immune response. Once inside the body, these DNA or RNA templates instruct our cells to start making antigens which activate the immune response needed to build immunity. RNA and DNA are much easier and faster to produce in the lab than antigens are. They're also potentially safer than vaccines that contain whole pathogens. That means they could hopefully be used by people with weakened immune systems. But nucleic acid vaccines are still experimental. Another approach is called a viral vector. Viral vector vaccines work by inserting an incomplete segment of genetic material from a pathogen inside a harmless virus that doesn't cause disease. This then acts as a vehicle for the genetic material, delivering it to the right place in the body where it can be translated into proteins, triggering the immune system. The viral vector may even be self-replicating, increasing the amount of vaccine in the body. Viral vector vaccines are also quick to produce. Safe vectors have already been established, and it is relatively easy to insert different target genetic material into these established carriers. And as the genetic material inserted is incomplete, they can't replicate and cause disease, so they're also very safe. But there is only so much the process can be sped along. Effective vaccines can save millions of lives, but before they are used, they have to be proven to be safe and effective. In the future, researchers hope to develop vaccines against non-infectious diseases, like cancers, based on chemical markers called tumor neoantigens. Vaccine technology is developing every day, and it has a bright future, albeit a slow and methodical one.
So one of the major concerns that persons have is that the COVID-19 vaccine is not safe because it was simply developed too quickly. And we have learned that the development of vaccines have different platforms, and it's dependent on the platform that we're using that will speak to the time. But in addition to that, we also know that the vaccines have to pass through at least 4 phases before they can be approved for use. They have to go through their animal trials, then they must go through the 3 phases of clinical trials. And each phase must be passed before you can get to the other stage. And the first stage in the clinical trials looks at safety. So if this medicine that we're developing is not safe, then it cannot go on to the next step. And the next step involves more persons now. And this next step, or phase 2, looks at the efficacy, the dosage that may be needed. And once we have completed that and it is still safe, we go into phase 3. Now, phase 3 is a very important phase because that's the phase that would take about 6 years to happen. That phase alone, phase 3, would take about 6 years. Now, why was that phase so long? That phase was long because we need thousands of persons across the world to come in contact with a particular disease and are willing to be part of a clinical trial. And it would take years for persons to come in contact with the disease and come on board. Now, last year, that 6-year time frame was cut down to about 6 weeks. Why was that so? Because it was a pandemic. Everybody across the world were exposed, and therefore thousands of persons from different backgrounds, ethnicity, race, sex, were able to participate. Pfizer, for example, got 40,000 persons, Moderna, 30,000, AstraZeneca, 40,000, Sinopharm, 100,000. So persons were there to participate in the phase 3 trials to look at both safety and efficacy, getting us now into our authorization for use. So we know the vaccines are safe, they're effective. They have to go through the same rigorous processes. None of the steps have been skipped. And other important things that led to the speed included global collaboration. So scientists no longer had turf rights and were so concerned about keeping things to themselves and getting fame and fortune. Information was easily shared. There was also this business of money. R&D companies once upon a time had to go and search for grants to be able to advance their medicine. That didn't have to happen last year because money was given for vaccines to be developed. So all in all, there are several factors that came together to allow us to be able to develop a vaccine in just about a year. Now, once we get over the myth of the rapid development of the vaccine, we come to another one. The COVID-19 vaccine is going to alter my DNA. So if I take this vaccine, I'm going to turn into some other person. I'm going to start growing an extra head, some hands, and I am just going to not be me. So we have the scientific data that the messenger RNA platform that's used or the viral vector platform that has been used to make these vaccines simply instructs the cells, as we learned, to make antibodies or germ fighting tools. That's all. They don't have any other effect on the body at all. They don't go over into our nucleus and start affecting our DNA. They don't do that at all. They have one primary role and function, and that is simply to instruct our cells to make the spike protein to be able to fight against the coronavirus. So we have the science, but we also have observation. Now 400, almost 500 million persons across the world have received the vaccine. I'm sure most of us on this platform knows someone who received the vaccine. And are they not the same person? Have they been growing any extra parts? I don't think so. So, we can almost easily put this myth to rest. There's another one, is that the COVID-19 vaccine actually contains a tracking device. And when you get that injection in your arm, you're going to be putting some microchip in there because all governments of the world have come together and they need to be monitoring every last citizen. They need to know every time we do whatever we do. Now, apart from that, just sounding a little bit over the top for vaccines, because really and truly, if we are to be monitored, I don't think they would need to spend millions and millions of dollars to put that chip in us. They just need to monitor our phones, because we do take the phones almost everywhere we go, doing everything we do. But on a serious scientific note, though, the vaccines will not track our personal information or data. There is no microchip that is present in this liquid that is going into our arms. And indeed, this has never been a part of vaccine development. But you know, I continue to believe that this myth of tracking came out of what we are so familiar here with Chinese telephone. The message that is received after it passes through 4 or 5 persons is totally and completely distorted from what the sender had intended. So vaccines indeed are tracked. Ladies and gentlemen, we track vaccines all the time, and we will continue to track vaccines. We track the cold chain, for example. Vaccines must be kept at a particular temperature. Once they are outside of that temperature, guess what? They are no good. So our vaccines, for example, coming from India, has to go to Amsterdam, then it has to go to Miami, then it has to change carrier, and then it gets to Jamaica. Now that's a day and a half, close to a 2-day trip. All right. Now we place a tracking device in the cartons that carry the vaccine because we need to know if when the vaccines arrive in Jamaica, they have maintained their temperature throughout their journey. Actually, we look at the temperature from it was manufactured, and we maintain the temperature until it gets into our arms. So we do track. We also track manufacturer batch number, lot number. Because should you take a vaccine and something goes wrong with you, we are able to pull everybody who received the same lot, the same batch from the same manufacturer at the same time. And we look at all of those persons. And if everybody's sick, then we say, maybe it really is the vaccine. But if it's only me one sick, then chances are it's not the vaccine and we have to investigate. So we do track, but the point is we don't need to place anything inside of anybody's arm like a microchip to track what we are requiring to ensure that our vaccines remain safe. There is another big myth that the vaccines are developed using fetal tissue. So there is some piece of an aborted baby that is present in the vaccine. And that is simply not so. I will just share with you the components of the AstraZeneca vaccine because that's the one we have here now. And if you recall from that little video, you would have heard about the viral vector technology. So you have this shell of a virus that causes no harm, that has been purified, and the center of it has been cored out. So it's really a shell. And in that shell, you're going to place the genetic code of the spike protein, and it is that which is injected. So that is the recombinant replication deficient adenovirus vector. That's what that is. That's that component. And then the other things are things that we really are familiar with. So the histidine, these are proteins in very small portions called amino acids. Then we have magnesium, which is a salt. We have polysorbate, which is an emulsifier. And of course, we know, remember that emulsifiers help for us to mix things together. So if you have oil and water and it wouldn't mix at all, as it doesn't, then you add the emulsifier and you get that mixing effect. That's our polysorbate. Then you have ethanol, which is just a little alcohol. Sucrose is just some sugar. Sodium chloride, both in the dihydrate form, is simply salt. And then you have water for infection. That's it. That's what the vaccine is made from. There is no dead baby or parts of any dead baby in this vaccine. The other myth is that the COVID-19 vaccine will cause infertility in women. You know, so they might try to kill off Black people and the world have too many persons. Wow, that's a big one. But that is indeed not so. The facts really are that the vaccines do not train our body to attack. There's a particular protein called the syncytin-1, which is a placental protein that, if damaged, could lead to infertility. But these vaccines do not train the body to attack the placental protein. It has no correlation with, it has no connection to, it cannot even get to that placental protein. We are constantly being reminded that the sequence is simply of the spike protein of the coronavirus and nothing else. And then if we move away from science and just go back to observing what is happening, hundreds of persons, it actually is thousands of persons who participated in the phases 1, 2, and 3 trials last year have indeed got pregnant and are continuing to deliver healthy babies. The other myth is that once I have been diagnosed with the COVID-19, I do not need to get the vaccine because guess what? I have natural immunity. Well, if you already have had the disease and you are better, you will know that persons would have recovered full 100, all right, proper, giving thanks. And then guess what? Them get it again. And that is simply because natural immunity wanes. It does not last for very long, okay? Over time, it slowly but surely disappears. And therefore, the advice recommendation is that although you have had the disease, then you certainly are to get the vaccine. And if it's the 2-dose vaccine, you should get both doses. Now, these two myths need a little bit of explanation. So the first one is you can get COVID-19 from the vaccine. That one is pretty easy because I just showed you what the vaccine was made up of. So there was no SARS-CoV-2 virus in the vaccine. So if it's not in it, if it's not a part of it, if it don't make up with it, then it can't give it to us because it's not there. So that's an easy one once we know what the vaccines are made up of. But then let's look at the other one. It says, once I receive the vaccine, I will test positive for COVID-19. We could use the same argument, could we not? That if it's not in it, it's not a part of it, then we can't get it. But let's slow down and look at this myth to see if we can really explain what might be happening here. So a lot of us on this platform tonight, well, maybe not a lot, maybe a few of us on the platform tonight may very well have the virus present inside of us. But guess what? We are asymptomatic or we are pre-symptomatic. So nothing done wrong with me. So if I take the vaccine tomorrow and you test me after that, you may find the virus because guess what? I had it before I received the vaccine. So of course I can test positive after getting the vaccine. What is that the vaccine give me? All right, so that's explanation number one. Explanation number two. Yes, I get the vaccine. But remember that the vaccine, the first dose of the vaccine, don't start to protect us until about 21 to 28 days after receiving same. So if I let down my guard after I get the vaccine and I stop wearing my mask, stop physical distance, and stop hand sanitize and hand wash, of course I can catch the virus. And if you test me, again, I will test positive. And that has nothing to do with the vaccine. And the third and final explanation is, what test are we doing? Remember, we're hearing about antigen tests. You remember we hear that? We hear about PCR and we hear about antibody. So now, if you are doing the antibody test, that is the one that is looking at the germ fighting tools that you are supposed to be building. So if we take the vaccine, we are supposed to have these antibodies. So that test must be positive. We actually want it to be positive. So those are three pretty simple explanations as to how a person having received the vaccine may test positive. All right, so the other myth, the COVID-19 vaccine has severe side effects such as allergic reactions. Well, yes, persons can have severe reactions, just like how persons can have severe reactions to peanut and crayfish and wasp bite and bee sting and all of those things, but very few persons do have those severe allergic reactions. Of course, whenever we have such a reaction and we are treated and we are better, we are certainly going to stay away. We're going to stay away from the peanuts. Some of us wear the bands that tell us what we're allergic to, so nobody will even come near us. And the very same thing happens with the vaccine. So if you are allergic to, you have a severe allergic reaction, then of course you will not be offered the second dose. And then we have those people just really, really say, you know, natural immunity, me not contaminate my body, me not take none where man make must go into my body. I mean, we do eat food, right? But be that as it may, persons are really, really up in arms about natural immunity is better. So we understand that natural immunity exists. We also know that it doesn't last for long. And we know that while we wait on the whole world to get natural immunity and develop herd immunity, how much deaths we have already? Over 3 million. So while we wait for that to happen, many more millions will die, and you know, we might even join them. So we have something that can build immunity without the damaging effects of COVID, right? And that something is actually our vaccines. Then we have, what is this myth now? Once I receive the COVID-19 vaccine, I will no longer need to wear my mask. I kind of like did allude to that in my ramblings on, because you can still get infected. What the vaccine does, the vaccine prevents us from getting severe illness. It prevents us from hospitalization. It prevents us from dying from COVID. But I can still transmit it, and I am selfish if I decide not to wear my mask because I am protected. So me not gonna dead, not gonna do me. But you have not received your vaccine as yet, so you are still susceptible. So I need to be selfless so that you can be protected until, again, enough of us are vaccinated. So we have dispelled a few of the myths, or looked at a few of the myths, and offered an explanation. So who really know is to get the COVID-19 vaccine? For AstraZeneca, it is persons over the age of 18. We know that. But all countries at the outset look at persons who fear the worst when they get the disease. So these are the persons that die. These are the persons that have long-term effects from the disease. And we know who those are. Those are the elderly persons, especially those with comorbidities. And comorbidities are simply our underlying illnesses that we have. So obesity is a biggie, and we know it's a biggie here in Jamaica. Lots of persons are obese. We think it's fluffy, but it's actually a kind of like ill health. We have any form of cardiovascular disease. So if you have heart failure, if you're hypertensive, then you are to get the vaccine, because if you get COVID, you're kind of dark. Then you have the respiratory illnesses, your asthma, your emphysema, bronchitis. We know that if you get the disease, again, you know, it not look so good. Persons with sugar should get the vaccine. If you have autoimmune disease like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, if you're HIV positive, if you're otherwise immunocompromised, then you should take the vaccine, because your course is not so good when you get the disease. And we know the contraindications. It's if you are allergic to any of the components. And in my career, I have found, and I look at the components, I actually have one patient who is indeed allergic to alcohol. So you remember the little ethanol in it? And of course, my advice is, boy, stay away from this one because it's just a little toops in there, but still, you know, you might have a reaction. And of course, if after receiving the first dose, you get this severe allergic reaction, then of course you will not be offered the second dose. So why will the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, why is it being used? Why is it so necessary? Because we know that most of the side effects are mild and they are gone in a few days. We're gonna look at some of them. And we know that it offers a good level of protection. We also have some additional information about AstraZeneca that is coming up strong. And it is that it stops us from being symptomatic for the disease in 79% of the times. So I can get the illness, but I'm not going to have the no smell, the no taste, the chest pain, the chest tightness, the inability to breathe. I'm not going to have any of those symptoms at all. I'll be symptom free. Now that's a plus. But what is even better is the fact that of the 40,000+ persons involved in the phase 3 trials of AstraZeneca, not one of them fell ill, needed hospitalization, or died. So that's 100% effective against persons falling ill. So yay for AstraZeneca. So we have AstraZeneca in country. Everybody knows that you get 2 injections. You get one today, the other one 8 to 12 weeks after that. And after the second dose, it takes us about 14 days to be fully protected. All right. So we get the shot. And what are the side effects? So as with almost every medication, there are side effects. If you watch cable TV and you listen to the list of side effects that they tell you about every medication, you wonder if you must really take it. I mean, like really, really, really. But we know that these side effects are anything that could happen, but they don't happen in everyone. They're few and far between. So we have very, very common side effects for Astra. More than 1 in 10 persons will have tenderness, pain, warmth, itching, redness around the injection site. They will feel very, very unwell. They're very fatigued. They can get chills, headache, nausea, joint and muscle pain. Then we have some common ones now where up to 1 in 10 persons will get these. They'll get the lump at the injection site, they get a fever, they vomit, and they get the flu-like illness and the cough, the sore throat, the runny nose. And then you have some side effects now that are not so common. 1 in every 100 persons will get this. They get dizzy, they have decreased appetite, some pain in the tummy, they have enlarged lymph nodes, wax and cannon all over the body, and they have excessive sweating, itchy skin. Now, these side effects are very uncomfortable, but we have to look at the bigger picture. Is a good thing happening to the body? The body actually recognizes the intelligence, which is the vaccine, remember that? And it is now responding in the right way. It is making the antibodies, developing the memory. So the discomfort that we feel is for a good thing. Things are happening in the right direction. And the other positive with these things is that they last for about 2 days, 24 to 48 hours. And then after that, you're good. I mean, if you're unfortunate, it may last for 3 days. Now, if any of these things persist, then of course, you are encouraged to visit your doctor. All right, so remember that the vaccines are safe and effective. They will save lives. They'll, allow persons to return to whatever we call normal. Most of the times when we speak about vaccines, we're speaking medicine. But a lot of countries, if not all, have economies that have really gone south. And if you take out persons, you recognize that there are persons among us that don't even know where their next meal is coming from. So we would like to get our countries back to norm. Now, vaccines are not the answer and everything done after you take the vaccine. We have to continue with wearing our masks. We have to continue to wash our hands, physical distance. Remember, we need all of that till we get to herd immunity. And guess what? There are still important things that we need to do to stay healthy. We have to ensure that we're eating properly, we're getting adequate rest, we are getting our exercise, and we must still stay socially connected. Those are the things that will boost our immune system, and vaccines will just be complementary to help to keep us well. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, that I have addressed a few of the myths, shared the facts, and our level of hesitation, that temperature may be a little lower, and we are closer to being convinced of the importance of getting our vaccine. So thank you very much. Over to the chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ennis. And I know that after such a very deep, thoughtful, and informative presentation, our audience here on the platform must be beaming and brimming with lots and lots of questions. And so at this time, I am going to be inviting Minister Floret Williams, and she will come to facilitate the question and answer segment of this activity. Mrs. Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Dr. Ennis, somebody is asking, does the vaccine heal, cure, prevent an individual from contracting the COVID virus? Does the vaccine protect the recipient from the African strain, Brazilian strain, the UK strain? Could you answer those two, please?
All right, I can try. So the vaccine that we currently have is still very good against the strains. So the research has shown that the AstraZeneca vaccine, the efficacy is less, slightly less for the UK strain for persons with mild and moderate disease. However, it remains efficacious for severe illness. For the South African strain, it is markedly reduced, but it is markedly reduced in mild and moderate disease again, but still remains efficacious in severe diseases. So based on that, countries have been advised, even if they have those strains or variants circulating, that they should go ahead and give the vaccine because it is beneficial to who? So remember who we're trying? For persons with severe illness, to prevent severe illness, hospitalization, and death. And it is still very effective against those. So that's that for the variants.
Thank you. Another question, if adverse effect kills the family member, how can an individual get reprieve?
You can sue your government, whichever country you're in, you can sue your government. Governments have absorbed the liability from manufacturing companies. I'm presuming that that question is on the foundation of indemnification. So manufacturing companies have, over many years, it's not anything new at all, have asked for indemnification. There is no person in the great big USA that since the 1980s that can sue any manufacturing company for anything that happens from a vaccine. The companies have said that they are keeping their core business and they're not getting involved with legal ramifications. And so they have deferred the risk to governments. So persons can sue governments for anything untoward that may happen.
Thank you. Are there any plans to make the vaccine mandatory?
Not that I'm aware of, certainly not from a health perspective at this time. But again, if we are following the news, it might not be health that makes it mandatory. It may be other sectors in our society. For example, if you and what sovereign countries do. So, you know, a country might say you can't come to my place unless you're vaccinated. The airlines might say you can't fly unless you're vaccinated. So it's not health that might put these restrictions on us. It might be those other entities.
Okay, thank you. There are many questions, so I'm gonna go.
That's
What
all right.
what is Jamaica's position with testing before vaccination is given?
Jamaica's position is the position of all countries in the world. There is no testing prior to administration of the vaccine. There is no evidence to show that if you have the virus, your outcome is worse after you have received the vaccine. And just following along from all vaccines that have been given, there is no testing that goes on before you get the vaccine at all.
Okay.
So our position is the same as the rest of the world.
Right. If you have had COVID, what is the waiting period, if any, before taking the vaccines?
So if you have been confirmed with COVID, you must complete your quarantine period. So your quarantine period is 14 days. So of course, you left your yard. So clearly you couldn't go get no vaccine. So that's one. And that's if you're well. Now, if you are sick, and popping down, then it is after you get better. As long as you have been released, you're asymptomatic, then you can get the vaccine. So there is no prescribed wait period.
Okay, thank you. What if your immune system is down? Should you take the vaccine?
The short answer to that is yes, but the fuller explanation is that we do know that if you are immunocompromised, then your response is not going to be full 100, as if you had a competent system. However, you are going to get some response, and it is better to get some response than no response at all. And we also know that the virus has a more deleterious effect on persons with a compromised immune system. So yes, you are to take the vaccine if you are immunocompromised.
Okay. Can you say how long those who have been vaccinated are immune to the virus?
Oh, I get some nice short answers. The short answer to that is I don't know. The long answer is that we continue to watch the evidence. So I see a couple of articles coming out of China, coming out of Italy, that persons who receive the vaccine may need to get a shot annually in a similar way, like how we get the influenza shot every year. So those preliminary studies are coming out. And if you are following the news, you would have heard that Pfizer is also saying it is possible that you would need a shot 6 months after, and you might need it annually. But those are mights and possibles. We wait on the data to be able to speak definitively about that.
Okay, thank you. Is blood clot a side effect? And if so, why not put the serious side effects out there?
Blood clots are not a side effect. What has been shown over the last maybe 6 weeks, the latest is that it is plausible that persons may get a blood clot from having had the vaccine. And we look at the numbers and how they have arrived at that plausibility. So my last check, which was Yeah, I need to check again because I think it was Monday of last week. That's a lot of time that have passed. They were looking in the UK at 200 million persons that received the AstraZeneca vaccine. And of that 200 million persons, 147 persons developed clots. You can do the math, right? So that's the ratio of the 0.000007 persons that would have received, who would have had a clot. They also broke down the clots into where persons got their clots. And the one that made it plausible was the clot in the brain, where in that population, it was expected that they would see 0 persons. And in the group of persons who received the AstraZeneca vaccine, 4 persons got clots. So that's 147 in 200 million. I just want to bring us closer to clotting and to recognize that the oral contraceptive pill, 500 out of every 100,000 persons get blood clot from the oral contraceptive pill. And ladies on this platform, let us not say that we continue to take the OCPs. So if you're looking at diseases that and medications that cause clot, we need to look at it in its entirety. So the short answer is that it is plausible. It may happen based on those preliminary studies, but it is not categorized as a definitive side effect to even be classed as a serious side effect at this time.
Okay, thank you. Where is the AstraZeneca vaccine from?
The AstraZeneca vaccine is made in 6 different manufacturing companies. I have been tracking 4. So there is the UK, there is Mexico, there is South Korea, and India. Those are the 4 that I've been tracking because we are in dialogue with all of those entities in Jamaica.
Okay. Several people are saying great presentation, but we still have some other questions.
That's fine. Well, thank you very much for your kind words. And let's go with the questions. Let's see if I can answer.
Yes. Did the COVID vaccine go through animal trials?
Yes, they did. And that is because the family of coronavirus is not a new virus. It is just this with the spike protein that is novel. Coronavirus have been with us for a while. We had MERS and we had SARS way back in 2000. So those trials of the virus started a long time ago, over 10 years. So all that has happened now is the new platform that they have been using to make the vaccine.
Okay. Another question, what about longitudinal studies?
They're in train, there's nothing about them. They continue, and we continue to look. When I spoke to 3 phases, there is a 4th phase that happens after vaccines, like other medications, are on the market, and those look at monitoring of the drug in the world. So that is your phase 4 trial, which would constitute your longitudinal work, and those continue and will continue.
What if you have the virus and don't know and take the vaccine?
Nothing will happen to you. There is no study that says you're going to pop down and die. No, there's no difference if whether you have the virus or you don't have it and get the vaccine. What I must say, however, is that if you are symptomatic, if you are sick, then we don't give you the vaccine, as we don't give anybody vaccines that when they're sick. And we all know that if you carry your kids to the doctor and you're popping down, the child have 100 and this temperature, you're not giving them the vaccine, they wait. But a lot of persons, because of their eagerness to get the vaccine, or in the back of their minds, they believe that the vaccine can cure, they mask their symptoms and them take whole heap of Panadol, whole heap of antihistamine, And then when them come to get the vaccine, they don't have no fever, them don't have no cough, and them get the joke. And then they continue to deteriorate. Now, we have to be true to ourselves. If you are symptomatic, you're not to get it. If nothing done wrong with you, if you're asymptomatic, yes, you can get it.
I understand this vaccine was a gift from India. Is it being used in India?
Short answer is yes. And not all the vaccines we are using are gifts from India.
Okay. What is considered serious side effect that would prevent one from taking the second dose?
An anaphylactic reaction, which is a severe allergic reaction that manifests itself with swelling and occlusion of the airway, with generalized rash. Persons may need to be hospitalized, be given intravenous medication to ensure that they're breathing properly, that they have no muscular, no skin changes. That constitutes your anaphylactic reaction, which is a serious side effect. There are a few neurological entities that may happen, and that would preclude you from getting the vaccine. Also, if you are on immunosuppressant therapy, you cannot get the vaccine within 14 days of receiving intravenous immunosuppressant therapy.
And an individual has contracted the virus, has serious comorbidities, and experienced mild symptoms. How would you advise that such a person taking the vaccine? How would you advise such a person about taking the vaccine?
So if you have serious comorbidities, then it's a great thing that you have taken the vaccine. It is also okay to have the side effects. If the side effects, however, persist, remember we said that we like it if it stops after 72 hours. So if it persists, you do need to seek medical attention, because remember that one of your comorbid conditions may flare up, or remember, you can have the virus and you can be having COVID. So if your symptoms persist beyond the 3 days, then you need to seek medical attention.
Okay. If you're taking aspirin for circulation, can you take the vaccine?
Yes, you can.
Okay. If you got first dose, no side effects, can you get side effects from the second dose?
Yes, you can. You can get side effects from the second dose, because remember now, you have a little antibody in there. You have some memory there to say, I'm ready to fight it when it comes. So when it comes, you might have a little fight there going on. So yes, you can get side effects from the second dose.
Okay, I believe you went into how the vaccine, somebody wants to know by definition, how is COVID vaccine different from others?
It's the platform that is used. So the live attenuated vaccine, which is the weakened version of the virus, is different from the subunit, is different from the killed virus. And so is it different now from the messenger RNA technology or the viral vector technology. So they're all different platforms that are used.
Now, how can you definitely state that there will not be any serious adverse effects 3 years from now?
I cannot definitely state anything. I can only present you with what I know, and as far as I know, there is no definite to anything. Nothing at all in life is full 100, except death once we are born. But outside of that, then there is a small percentage in anything and everything that we do.
Okay. For those who may develop clots or will develop clots, what measures are put in place to assist with their medical bills if this occurs?
Well, healthcare in Jamaica is free. As far as I recall, it is. So, yeah, And don't, colleagues, remember that persons are developing clots every day, So this is not a new phenomenon of clot development, Persons have deep vein thrombosis every day. Persons get pulmonary embolism every day. These are conditions that we treat every day, and persons get better and go home. So you'll be treated.
Okay, what strategies are in place to target the youth population in taking the vaccine, since there are so many theories about it?
All right, so remember, we're not giving it to anybody under the age of 18, which would be children and younger persons in other countries. As soon as the most vulnerable have received the vaccine, then you move on down into the younger age groups. So I believe in the States that started in December of last year. 4 months now, and I think they're into under 30 get the vaccine. So, it's offered to them. In the interim, of course, it is just the maintenance of the.
Hello?
Contract the disease, they are not going to do badly at all. Them run up and down same way. Them don't feel nothing. So, we have to implore upon them the importance of maintaining the protocols.
Okay. Why was the vaccine refused in Europe? Dr. Ennis?
The vaccine was halted in Europe. Yes, I'm answering. Not hearing me? Sorry.
You broke up.
The vaccine was halted in Europe. Wow, okay, I'm sorry. Right, so the vaccine was halted in Europe. Well, actually, if we go back a little bit, the AstraZeneca vaccine was halted about 3 times in Europe. The first time was in the phase 2 going into phase 3 trial, when one person in the trial developed abnormality. And at that time, it was the
all right, so
what we get if I got the real medication or I got just water. And the person who was giving us the medication didn't know if they gave me or they gave you water. And one person developed this neurological problem and they stopped the study because they needed to pull that person and see what that person got, if it was the vaccine. And it was not. It was the water them did get. And so the study was started again. So that was the first time it was stopped. The second time it was stopped was with the development of another allergic reaction. Again, it was in the trials, double-blinded, and when they did the pulling, they recognized that it was not the vaccine. And then the third time now, when they pulled it, it was because of the clot situation that had developed. And they have found that it is plausible, as we went through before, but they also have found that the benefits of the vaccine, 200 million minus 147, the benefits of the vaccine way outweighs the risk. And all the countries have restarted using it. So it's being used in Europe.
Okay. Why are persons to be given the vaccine every year? What about the replication of the protein over a period of years when you take the vaccine?
No. Well, we don't know that the vaccine is going to be given every year. We are not there yet. The studies are being conducted to see. But based on what you said, there is no development. We take the flu vaccine every year, and not do we? We've been taking the flu vaccine every year for the past umpteenth of years.
Okay, I'm just gonna pause in the reading now. I see 2 hands raised. We prefer if you write your question. We're gonna give you the opportunity to speak and ask Dr. Ennis your question, but please do not have a long question. It must be short. Thank you. So the first person is Michelle. Would you open your mic and ask a question, please? Michelle, are you still interested in asking your question? Okay, I'll move on to K Folks Grant. Could you open your mic and ask your question, please?
Yes, Doctor, good night, everyone. Dr. Ennis, given the fact that we have over 7 billion persons on the population and we are challenged right now to produce enough of these vaccines for the demand that is there, why is there such a resistance from WHO to approve certain treatment and vaccine that have been recommended by a highly qualified and respected doctor? I've heard about ivermectin, which the treatment is effective among others. Why is it that WHO does not want to approve any other vaccine that is not being approved by them or money pumped in by certain countries by them for the others that have been recommended?
Thank you. Could you mute your mic,
Yes,
please?
so I think there are many questions in that one question. First of all, let us not mix up treatment with the vaccine. So ivermectin, for example, is a treatment. Now, various authorities have recommended several medicines for use, and different stringent regulatory authorities have the right to utilize what their criteria for making an assessment of a particular medication. And that is the right of those authorities to utilize universal pointers in order to come to a determination as to the use. So that's basically it. So I can't say, I'm not going to go down the road of who is getting money for what. I'm looking at the science and the criteria that are used. And if a particular medication at a point in time don't meet the standard that is set, it simply don't meet it. And we also have to look at meta-analyses for standards to be met. So you can have case studies, few case studies that may show a positive effect, and you do not have your meta-analyses that you can extrapolate. And that is one of the criteria that is used by these stringent regulatory authorities to grant approval. So ivermectin, for example, is not approved to be used here in country by everybody. So we don't just import it into country. But one particular doctor could request that ivermectin be used to treat a case, right? And that would be that, what you call it now, that responsibility would be there. But the stringent authorities that regulate the use of medications really have to follow all of the criteria set before they can allow medications.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ennis. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to wrap up the question and answer. Please do not open your mic unless I ask you to. I'm gonna read this other question. Can pregnant women, mothers breastfeeding take the vaccine? And I'll take, just after that, we'll take two more, one from the chat, and I see that Michelle's hand is still raised, and I'll take that one too. Yes, Doc. Can pregnant women, mothers, breastfeeding mothers take the vaccine? Dr. Ennis, are you still on?
I'm still on, and the short answer to that, yeah, man, I heard the question. So, first of all, the clinical trials were not conducted in pregnant and lactating women. So we don't have any data as to the effect of the vaccine in this group of persons. However, we have some facts about the platform of the vaccine. And I'm going to speak now just to AstraZeneca. So the AstraZeneca is a non-replicating vaccine. right? The virus is non-replicating, and therefore this vaccine cannot cross over into the placenta, and it cannot get into breast milk. So nothing will happen to the fetus, and nothing will happen to the baby via breast milk or from being transferred across the placenta. So we know that. So by just the make of the vaccine, we know that it is safe for the baby. Now we look at, so that's the risk for the vaccine. We don't have any information because it wasn't studied, but we know how it was made and what it can and cannot do. Then we look at the pregnant woman or lactating woman. Now, if these persons contract the virus, their outcome is very, very poor. They tend to die. And if they don't, the babies, they tend to have premature babies. So when the Strategic Advisory Group looked at the benefits and the risks, the recommendation was for pregnant and lactating women who are super exposed, such as healthcare workers, to be offered the vaccine, right? So if you're super exposed, you're a healthcare worker, you're on the front line, then you should be offered the vaccine because the benefits is going to outweigh the risks. So that's the answer to that question. But for others now who may not be super exposed and really want to wait, then they can so do.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to take 2 questions. We have 2 more. One is from Michelle. Could you open your mic and I'll read the last one from the chat. Ladies and
Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. What I'd like to know, I've known persons that took the vaccine and within a week they've contracted the virus. They don't get the second dose as yet. The second dose is due on the 8th of May. But I'm wondering if they have to take over another dose. That simply means they would have to get 3 doses instead of 2 of the AstraZeneca.
No, Miss Michelle, they won't have to get over. We don't restart the dosing. So it's still 2 doses that they're going to get. And if they contracted the virus after the first dose of the vaccine in that interim there, then once they are better, then they can keep their 8th of May appointment. If they're still sick, then that date will be deferred.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Is Jamaica a part of the Immunization Agenda 2030? If so, explain.
Well, I'm not sure what is the Immunization Agenda 2030. So maybe that person will need to explain that to me first.
Okay, so I'm inviting Perkins to open your mic and just explain what that Immunization Agenda 2030 is, please. We have just a minute.
Well, I'm basically asking the question based on what I've seen on the WHO website. So because I don't know if Jamaica is a part of it. So I was just asking to see if you have any information regarding that. We could go on to our next question.
I'm not aware of the immunization agenda. I'm not aware of that. I know that Jamaica, along with over 190 member states of WHO, are a part of the expanded program on immunization, which started here in Jamaica in 1977. And we continue to vaccinate our population. You would know that we have it into legislation for persons under the age of 7. They cannot go to school unless they're fully vaccinated. And what WHO is trying to do is to eradicate polio from the world, just like how we have eradicated smallpox. There are 2 countries that still have polio, so it's not gone yet. They're also trying to eradicate measles. We have 12 countries in the world that still have endemic measles. So if that's the agenda you're speaking about.
No. I would expect that.
That's what I know we are on. We are on to that.
Okay, you can just take a next question for that question then.
Sir?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
What are you finished, Mr. Perkins?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right, thank you. Could you mute your mic, please? So we are not going to take any other question. Our time is up. So some of the questions that I see coming up are questions that were already answered, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know if the department will have a second session, but for tonight, I really want to thank you for your participation. I will suspect that we can hang on and we look at the questions and see if we can provide any further answers in the chat. But right now, I just want to turn back over to our moderator, Minister War Richards.
Thank you so very kindly, Mrs. Williams, for so ably navigating us through that segment. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, what an evening this has been. It is indeed an evening of empowerment, an evening of knowledge, an evening when our church, the Church of God of Prophecy, has invested in our well-being. Dr. Ennis, we want to thank you wholeheartedly for coming this evening and dispelling the myths, the fears, the doubts, and the misconceptions. You have indeed enlightened our darkness, and you have indeed added to our knowledge of what really obtains as it relates to the COVID-19 vaccine. We thank God tonight that no part of the COVID vaccine is constituted of any dead babies. It doesn't cause infertility. And with this knowledge, time would fail for me to go through all the information that you have shared with us, Dr. Ennis, but I can tell you that we will be a better people for it, a more knowledgeable people. And those of us who were not able to get the information from you firsthand, I know we are giving our commitment tonight to ensuring that our brothers and our sisters in other parts of Jamaica who did not have the opportunity to join will have access to the information you have shared. We recognize that there is a heavy load upon the Ministry of Health and Wellness in Jamaica, and in particular upon a portfolio like yours. And so as a praying people and as a church, we are committing tonight, Dr. Ennis, to pray for you and to pray for the Ministry of Health and Wellness and all your colleagues at this time who are doing their best to ensure a healthy Jamaica and a COVID-free Jamaica. I want to say to all of us who've gathered on this platform tonight that we are indeed grateful for your collective participation. I'm very certain that the takeaways from this webinar will further deepen our thinking, dispel the fears, and of course, it will help us to be able to speak from a knowledge perspective to the myths that are there in the air. And so tonight, to all of us, I challenge us to go out now and to act upon the new information that we have garnered. And let us not only be useful in our church communities, but even the communities within which we live. Let us be ambassadors of the truth and of the knowledge of the COVID vaccine. Once again, on behalf of our National Bishop and the Communication and Public Relations Department of the Church of God of Prophecy, Jamaica, I say thanks for joining us, and the Lord be with you.
Thank you all so very much for the invitation. Have a wonderful evening.
The very same to you, Dr. Ennis. I know that persons will be here for a while because we have quite a number of persons. So while we leave the platform, I'm going to be asking one of our hosts just to play for us something that will really give us a little blessing to go off into the night.
Do you know who you are? We are a chosen generation. We've been called from